Dan Lozzi is the proprietor of the OutlookSpeaks.org. He himself has been known to speak out all across the country, including the United Kingdom. We got him on the line here, and we are going to breach a variety of subjects today. Mr. Lozzi, are you still there with us, Mr. Lozzi?
I am still here.
All right, great. No, thank you for that commercial break. We actually don't have commercials per se because we are anti-commercial, but I find that the formatting seems to grab people in the familiar format that they're used to. So,
like I said, short attention spans. You gotta not trying to disrespect your audience.
No.
Disrespect mine, but that's the world we live in right now.
And that's why, in a large sense, we're imitating what the rest of the media does here. I guess we're using media to deprogram people, and I'm sure that's what you're about too, aren't you?
I do the same thing. I when I tour, it's like you said, I have metal bands and hardcore, whatever. I'll speak at skate parks anyway. I mean, that's what people do, and it's exciting. And honestly, I even myself, I'd probably be more likely to go to something like that than to just hear some guy blowing off steam for 20 minutes or half an hour or whatever it may be.
So when you go to these, I mean, usually you have an idea of what you're going to be speaking about when you go to these tours.
Yeah, I have an idea. I just not a rehearsed. Like you asked me what I'm speaking about when I come out to the Midwest in November.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm sure some ideas will be running through my head, that day. And so that's kind of how I approach it.
Actually, I tend to wake up the day before the show. I gather all the news that I'm interested in throughout the week, and then the day of the show, I wake up and there's always some news that I'm like, hey, I wouldn't know that until I wake up and find out what it is, and then that's what the show becomes about.
Right, and Michael. I remember one time up in Maine, I was hanging out. There's a band from New York, their name's Hands Up, and they were playing, and some old guy tried starting a fight with us before the show. And the funny thing is, us, the young people, were the more responsible ones, and we averted the conflict, which, again, the adults aren't as innocent as they claim to be, but you'd think he'd set an example. But long story short, everybody there was like, it was a few minutes before I went on, and they're like, you got to talk about this when you get up there tonight. So I did. So totally unplanned. I get up there and started off with this knucklehead out in the parking lot who tried starting a fight with us for no reason. So, that happens.
Let me put you on the spot. Pretend like we just ushered that guy out the door. We got you on the mic. We're on the stage. Everybody's tuned to you. And what do you give us an example of what your lectures are like?
I usually start off very hard hitting. In that situation, what I would probably do is, and what I probably did that night, right away, throw out some type of example from the news. Hey, kid got murdered the other night, right? And all the old people are shaking their heads. Why does this happen? Well, you tell me. I just had a guy outside who was well into his 60s try starting a fight with a bunch of dudes in their 20s and 30s. Probably not a smart idea. And the embarrassing part is that we were the younger people, and we were the ones who stopped the altercation from happening. So you tell me who's the problem, the young kids or the old people. I say it's the old people. There's an example for you right there. That's probably how I'd start it off.
That's
you like that?
Well, I mean, the younger people in the audience would. I mean, perhaps because it immediately, whenever we have an external threat, it tends to breed internal unity until the external threat's removed. And
absolutely.
And I guess, can it be helped? I'm not for the old or for the young. I'm for anybody that is willing to go out into this new paradigm called the 21st century.
Right.
And to embrace, I mean, when I say new paradigms, have you heard about weather modification?
Of course, absolutely. Jesse Ventura's episode on HOP got pulled. And you see it on YouTube now.
And the listeners, your audience, they are aware because of you of these types of topics. The other, I mean, some of the more common ones are the Federal Reserve is a private institution.
Right. How about the $1 billion the FBI just spent in facial scanning cameras that are now going to go up all over the country?
Well, I'll raise your facial scanning cameras and raise you 30,000 drones set to fly across the country.
Right. That was actually, I was in Illinois when that was brought to my attention. A club called the Black Sheep Cafe out in Illinois. My buddy Kevin, who runs it, he brought that up to me back in the spring. Right when I got home, I looked at it. I'm like, wow, yeah, he's right. He's like, you hear about these drones all over the U.S.? Michael, this is a great time to get into this. Let me say this, right? My perspective on the government or your rights being taken away is probably a little unique from the average activist.
I'd like to hear it.
I'll just be very honest about what I think. When I grew up, when I was a kid, I had a good friend of mine who we were really into all this stuff, and we used to stay up late at night reading about all types of conspiracy theories and this whole thing you hear about the 1%, a few people controlling the world. I mean, we were into all that 15 years ago, and my attitude has changed over the years.
Really?
What I've seen now is this. I have my frustration with our leaders is almost completely gone. In fact, I'm at the point almost where I say let them do whatever they want. The reason is because I've witnessed a public in possibly the freest country in the world where we can do whatever we want. We can, at any time we can change the government if we don't like it, has sat by and watched this happen and done nothing about it, and is, in fact, many times okay with it. And I gave you the example the other day. I just mentioned Jesse Ventura. Alex Jones. Now, again, some people think he's actually part of the system, or there's a lot of ideas about him.
I've been hearing that a lot lately, but
right,
but
right,
I don't think he is. But personally, I
right,
don't think he is. But it's interesting that is the trend you picked up on too.
Right. Well, let's say for the sake of argument, he is. Just for the sake of my argument.
Yeah.
End of the day, he's still turning people on to a lot of different ideas. Look at Jesse Ventura. Look at Ron Paul. I remember when Ron Paul was a nobody. Yeah, he's not in the race now, but look at all the mainstream press he got. Now, my point is this. I have seen Alex Jones, Jesse Ventura, and Ron Paul. All three of them have been guests on The View, which I talked about The View earlier. I resort to that show a lot, and Kelly and Regis and all those shows, the daytime shows where I know mainstream America is watching. Jesse Ventura gets on The View, okay, and he says Vietnam was started over the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which never happened. Now, at best, it was exaggerated, okay? Here's my point, okay, Michael, and you brought up, to me the other day, kids being infected with diseases in New York City. He brought that up, too, with us infecting people in Central America with diseases. When he can go on that television show and say that in front of millions and millions of soccer moms, this is no longer underground information. This is not conspiracy theory. This was put right in front of America. When Alex Jones and Ron Paul are guests on this show, and they're not hiding him. They're not suppressing him. They're having him on the show. They're letting all three of those guys say whatever they want. When those guys can go on those shows and speak their mind, and there's still no motivation to change or for people to have their eye on the government, then what do you want me to do? What am I supposed to say? This, to me, is no longer a case of information being suppressed. This is a case of America knows about this, and Jersey Shore is more important. I mean, that's as grim as that sounds, Michael. That's my perception right now of this country. I say let the government. If that's how you're going to treat your freedom, then your freedom's going to be taken away. That's my opinion.
In other words, to simplify what you're saying, let's not blame the leaders. Let's blame the followers. It's not the leadership.
Absolutely.
It's the followership.
100%.
And
right.
I agree, because we can blame our leaders all day long, but who ultimately put them up there? Why weren't we making the decisions? Why do we let other people make these decisions for us, especially when they're so pressing to our own lives? It's amazing. You've got the Proposition 37 right now out in California. No GMOs are being labeled. Does America care? Actually, out on the West Coast, they seem to be very up on it. I find here in the Midwest, we're slowly growing in an awareness to GMO foods. How's it looking out on the East Coast there?
Well, Michael, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you how it's looking. Up the street from me at the Walmart, you can go in and get flu shots. You can get flu shots at the grocery store. Why are we going to the grocery store for flu shots?
Because
First of all, why
the pharmaceutical company needs to make a fortune, and they
it's absolutely pharmaceutical.
Anyway.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time.
That, right?
Right. I mean, Michael, it's like this, right? When I was a kid, you got the flu, you threw up, you stayed home from school, and you were fine.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, when did the flu become this life-threatening? I mean, maybe in the third world, I mean, you could die from diarrhea from the flu, but I mean, out here, it's like people are tripping. I saw a friend of mine years ago. he hit his toe on something, and he's running for an Advil. And I've seen people wake up from a nap and take a Tylenol. What are you taking a Tylenol after you wake up from a nap for? To me, after you wake up from being asleep, you should feel better. I mean, I always tell people, eat an apple. It's like, what do you, and everyone's on medication. I mean, if a kid is acting like a kid, they want to put them on medication because they're bouncing off the walls. And there's nothing wrong with it. You notice everyone's got ADD now? Everyone's got ADD.
Oh, right.
When I was a little kid, it was like attention deficit disorder. You had 2 kids in the whole damn school that were on medication, that had severe attention problems. Now it's like every other kid. They're on medication. They're on this. They're on that. And again, Michael, but like I said, I mean, that flu shot advertisement comes out, and people are tripping over themselves to get to the grocery store. And it's convenience. It's, I don't want the flu. I don't want to be sick. I don't want the flu. Man, you know what? At some point, people got to stop putting freedom in front of convenience. I mean, or privacy or whatever it is. You know what, Mike? I'll give you another example. I mean, you mentioned the UK. One of the things when I went over there, and I was already, well, I'm like, I got to get to the bottom of this, and I did. This as you know, London, the surveillance cameras everywhere. Now, I can't even say it's London set aside from us. I would say now most U.S. cities have caught up to London, and they may have been the trailblazer, but now we're looking a lot like them. Mike, you go into a restaurant, and I'm telling you, there's a camera in the restaurant pointed at you, okay? But the problem is, Michael, and this is what I want everyone to understand, people in London felt unsafe, and a lot of them are glad. They are happy the cameras are up. A lot of them like the cameras, okay? Which, again, gets back to personal responsibility. If we're going to be a culture that wants to rape and rob and have gang fights and get in brawls on the playground and put it on YouTube, then this is how we're going to be treated. Of course there are people in the government that want to take your rights. I'm not denying that. But I'll tell you what, we as a culture are certainly giving these people a lot of leeway and a lot of reason to take our rights. I've always said the best thing you can do to preserve your rights, or, you know, the best thing you can do against people who you think are taking your rights is don't give them a reason. Don't be on the corner selling cocaine, and chances are you've got a pretty good argument if they want to put a surveillance camera up. You can say, hey, nothing's been going on here. I talk to the kids all the time when they talk to me at shows, and they talk about the cameras at the school, and they got their ID cards. I go, well, you know what? It took a long time for it to get to that point. It didn't happen overnight. I'm going to guess there were a lot of fights in the bathroom, in the parking lot, and people bringing drugs to school before those safety precautions finally went up. And I know I sound like the bad guy, again, blaming the people, but it's personal responsibility. We're a country that we're so used to our freedom that we're not having a problem with it being taken away and with cameras being up in every aspect of our lives. And again, just remember, like I said, a lot of those people in London are very happy those cameras are up because they feel safer, I guess.
I don't feel safe with those cameras watching us because I know in the end it's a way to just track, trace, and end our liberties. But an interesting point before we cut to commercial and come back with Dan Lozzi, when the Stasi was finally disbanded, everybody was freaked out and are scared of them. But what they found out is only 10% of the people were actually had files. We'll be right back. You're listening to RiverwestRadio.com. You're out on the road, you want to know them tires are touching the pavement. You want rubber to concrete. When you're out there, you want to drive knowing that you're in control of the wheel. Well, what about your government? Don't you think your government should have its reality check and the rubber hit the pavement? What's going to put the brakes on the rampant fiscal spending, budget problems? It's not the voter, it's not the constituents, it won't be the leaders. The problem ain't the leaders, it's the followers. Get behind the wheel, America. It's like the roaring 20s all over again. The stock markets are well above 12,000. It's as if nothing could go wrong, or could it? The truth is, the American economy is not as strong as it actually appears. The The job reports for June were down, manufacturing down. The actual CPI rate, if you adjusted it correctly, would show that unemployment is at a staggering 22%. 46 million Americans are on food stamps, and guess who runs that program? Not the government, no, Goldman Sachs. I'm telling you, the situation here is more abrupt than we think. Wake up, America. We have hard times coming. And we need to prepare for what lies ahead.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
This is Breaking Down the News, bringing you headlines that should have made the front pages. Streaming live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard. All right, Dan, we are back, and I have in studio with me my co-anchor, Caitlin Redding. She's been listening to the interview we've been having, and she's got a couple of questions to Dan Lozzi, Caitlin Redding. I'd like to introduce you.
Hi, Caitlin. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's wonderful to hear a hometown accent. My whole family's from New England.
Get out of here. Do you mind me asking where from?
Concord, New Hampshire, and then...
are you really?
Yes, and then small areas around.
I know the area well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, Caitlin, can I just say something real quick?
Please.
I forgot to say. Just because I know a lot of people from my audience on the internet are listening. I'm in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania tomorrow night. I'm speaking at, I believe it's called the Off-Campus Activity Center.
Cool.
The band Represents playing their straight edge band if you're into that. And just go to my website, www.theoutlookspeaks.org, and all the dates are on there. I'm back in Massachusetts at Bogart's in Bridgewater on Tuesday, and people can check that out if they're interested in seeing me speak.
Oh, thank you so much for letting us know that. We are not absolutely sure who's listening, but if the audience is anything like the radio people here, then we're all over, and I would never cross out the idea that someone might actually appear in Pennsylvania tomorrow.
I guess I'm maybe saying it more to my audience, I guess.
That's fine.
Hopefully they're tuning in today.
But we're going to come
anyway.
join your audience and make it one big audience. Dan,
Great.
I've got a couple of questions. I've got some challenges for you, but I also,
Yes.
I don't know you as well as Michael. I'm not as familiar with what you do, so I've just been listening, and I'm a little confused, and I figure if I'm a little confused, that there must be people in the audience who are also a little
I'm
confused.
sure there are.
So let's try to just regroup a little bit here and kind of hone in on this. You're coming here. You come and you speak. You have, I'm sure, a whole genre of topics that you're ready to converse on expertly, but you'll let the mood of the day and the events of the day kind of shape and sway how you approach things and what you bring up.
Yes.
And you come on... Are you, how would I say this, would you be like a warm-up act to one of the bands?
Oh, yeah, sort of. What usually happens is, Caitlin, I'll put it to you this way. When I started this in 2004, I kind of didn't want to do the usual, like, Noam Chomsky professor lecturing thing, write
Certainly.
a book tour type thing. I just kind of had these ideas, and I wanted to speak in front of people. And my buddy Rick from Stay Sharp Booking, which he didn't have Stay Sharp at the time. Long story short, he had put a show together out here on the South Shore, and it was a bunch of bands. It was all ages. It was like kind of, heavier bands, metal bands and hardcore and punk and all that. And he said, why don't you speak at this? It'd be a perfect venue. It's built-in audience. And it worked out so well that that's what I started doing. I just spoke at these all-ages events around the area where bands were playing. He'd give me a slot. So if there were 5 bands playing, I might go on before the 4th band, usually while they're setting up. And then bands started taking me on tour with them. And then I started touring on my own. So, even I'm coming out for these 2 shows that have already been put together, and I was asked to be on. But if I was touring on my own, usually what would happen is the local bands in the area would open up for me. Whoever booked me, the promoters or whatever, would have a few bands open up, and then I usually go on towards the end. Although when I was in Milwaukee, I spoke at the Brood Cafe in Milwaukee, and that was a bunch of poets opened up for me that night. It was more of an activist
I wish
thing.
I would have been there, actually. That's right near us.
Well, that's, also, too, Michael, that's where I met Chet that night, who put me in contact with you. So,
Thank you, Chet.
Yeah, and that's that night he wanted to get me on a radio show. That night he had some friends that were doing a show, and I had to get out. I was supposed to be back in Illinois the next night, so I have a pretty brutal schedule when I tour. It's a lot of very long drives, and I do the show, and sometimes I have to leave that night after the show.
Too, when you come to town, actually, I hope after the show, if you're not doing anything, let's get together and just, we don't need to even talk shop. It'd just be an honor and a pleasure to
right, definitely.
have some food and some coffee with you.
Right. Well, I'm thinking I'll have a couple of my helpers with me. I have a table I set up, Michael, and what I would say, Michael, is even it's going to be a long show. There's going to be a lot of bands playing. I might have to leave after the show, but, I will be there for the duration of the show. So after my set, I would have tons of time to hang out if you did want to go somewhere. We could definitely do that.
Are you leaving Milwaukee right after that?
I think that night, the show starts around 5 or 6. I think I'm going on after the first two bands. I'm going on kind of early in the night, but like I said, I'll be there probably till like 11, maybe midnight. So even if I leave after the show, that doesn't mean I wouldn't have time to hang out. I could definitely do that.
So we can introduce you to some of Milwaukee's nightlife as quaint as it might be.
Milwaukee nightlife, yes.
Yes. Well, that was
it's droll. Don't. I've been there, Dan. It's droll. It's just like a bunch
you
of
guys,
pretending.
I don't want this to. I mean this as a compliment. You guys kind of had like a '70s feel for some reason.
Yes,
I
we
looked
do.
at the city, the skyline. I'm like, this doesn't look like this. The visuals have changed much in the last 30 years.
We are trapped in the '70s.
We are truly a northern port city, so you should feel quite at home here.
Right. Oh, yeah. It definitely reminded me a little of Boston. I mean, I'm not from the city. Like I said, I'm out more towards Plymouth. But
Sure.
The thing is, though, Boston, it does have that 70s look, but at night the lights are really pretty. I like that. And same with Milwaukee. It was fun, though, when I was up there. You guys had a couple neighborhoods with the pastel, the bright pink, and the bright blue, yellow houses. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. We have a few like that. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
There were a few on that street with the Brewed Cafe. I took some pictures of them. I was like, some bright colors.
Brady Street naturally looks like San Francisco a little bit.
Yeah,
Right.
it does. It does.
That's
I
right.
hate
You go
Ashbury.
from neighborhood to neighborhood, it changes up a little bit.
Right.
Well, that was a wonderful recapping. I have a much better understanding now, so hopefully that means people listening from our audience also understand a little bit better what you're about. The timing on your performance sounds good, too. You kind of get out of there before anybody's had just too much beer and can't understand you anymore. I was talking.
I try not to put people to sleep. Sometimes the promoters tell me to stay up longer, and I'm like, dude, I gotta get off. You don't want to stay up there too long with this
Just
type
go,
of thing.
you in the third row, wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's happened a few times.
Something like that.
Get the man a coffee.
So I've been listening. It's been a wonderful interview. I kind of wanted to challenge you a little bit, though, on some of the conclusions that you were drawing. When you're talking about, like, the flu shots and things of that sort, I wanted to address that. I also wanted to address the camera issues. I just had a friend return from a business trip in Singapore, and she was unaware of all of the cameras everywhere. You can't go anywhere in Singapore without a camera being on you, even in a dressing room or a bathroom. There is a camera.
Right.
And
I've heard of them in the bathroom in London, too, although I didn't notice any, but I've heard of the bathroom.
Right.
Continue. Yep.
Well, and she found it unnerving, but she also said that she could go anywhere. She could drive. She could walk at midnight and be absolutely perfectly safe. She said the city has a very low crime rate.
Right.
And the citizens are encouraged to turn each other in. So you can take
absolutely.
So if you see somebody breaking a law, and I'll just give an example to the audience. If you throw your cigarette butt on the street, it's a $250 fine. And
absolutely. Chewing gum, all that stuff.
Right. So let's say someone's watching you and they take a picture. They can actually submit that to the government and they get a reward, and you will get a fine in the mail.
Well, that's how that kid, remember the kid got paddled a couple decades ago? I mean, he spray painted on something, and it was like national news,
Surprised
But
he wasn't
go
killed.
on, I don't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. We're very free talkers here, so feel quite at home. But she was at first intrigued by it, but that everywhere she went, every time she sat down anywhere to have a meal or walk, she started to recognize where all the camera placements were, and it actually started to feel very invasive, and she started to get angry.
Right. Well,
So,
Caitlin, it's like I said, too. You said at one point in that story that you just told me that she could go anywhere, 2 in the morning or whenever, and felt safe.
Yes.
I'm telling you, a lot of the people over in London, especially the younger people that I talk to, I mean, they were born into this. They feel better. And some of them said, listen, see that camera right there? And we'd be having the conversation in front of the camera. If that thing wasn't there, it'd be a horror fest in here right now. And, again, it gets back to, like, you know, what does that say about our culture, that the only way to calm people down is to have those cameras? Because I'll tell you what, Caitlin, a lot of other privacy advocates say, oh, it's not. I've seen documentaries on the ones in London where all these privacy activists are saying, it's not keeping us safe, it's not keeping us safe. Here's how I look at it. I'm sure it's keeping us very safe, but that doesn't make it right. I mean, why, just because it's making people safe, why does the conversation end? Why are they okay with it? Caitlin, can I tell you something? I want to tell you a story, what set me off about the cameras I'll get back to what you were saying.
Sure.
The reason I got so hung up on cameras is years ago, there's a department store. You've heard of IKEA, obviously. Well, they opened one up in Stoughton, Massachusetts. You said you're from the area. Maybe
yes,
you've heard
I know
of it.
where that is, actually.
Right. There were people driving from Maine and New Hampshire. I helped open the thing. I was there before it opened. I helped build it up and stuff.
Wow.
And I did it as a second job. And, one day, and this was the beginning of my concern about the cameras, the security guys, I was hanging out with one of them, talking with them, or loss prevention they call it, and I ended up in their office with all the monitors from the cameras. And what blew my mind, what I didn't know, see, everyone's got this perception that the camera is just rolling. And if there's an incident, they review the camera later, okay, or the footage. Those guys are in that room. Not only are they watching the cameras, and these department stores got like 50-plus cameras on the ceilings. I mean, they're everywhere. But what got me was they've got like mechanisms on these cameras where they can zoom in on a person and follow them. There's a good chance, I'm going to say, you, me, and Michael at one time or another, and probably everyone in this audience, at one time or another was probably followed by a camera with zoomed in on what we're doing. Are we putting something in our pocket or our pocketbook? And that's a real person watching. I mean, they're zooming in on people all the time.
Sure, that's a type of profiling, isn't it? That's what I assume that is.
Right. Regardless, my point is this, is that even if it's, let's say it's stopping robberies, why are people so okay with it? Why are we now just, and people shrug their shoulders like, there's cameras everywhere. Huh? Well, you can't just shrug your shoulders and be okay with it. Like, let's at least have a debate in this country about the fact that $1 billion was spent on the facial recognition cameras,
I agree with you entirely, but the point that I wanted to make about Singapore, and the thing that angered her at some point during her visit, she was there for about a week, is how easily the government was able to fine its citizens, and basically the government became quite rich. It's a very prohibitive place. You have to buy a permit to register a car before you can even get a car, and that's $20,000 to $30,000 just to get a permit to bring a car into Singapore. And then there's other fees as well. So she saw it. She recognized immediately that we were looking at a almost, I want to say, a fascist government. I mean, can I go that far? But the thing was, the government itself was keeping the people poor and becoming very rich. Well, here's an interesting thing. Where's that money going?
Well, you know what, Caitlin? I'll give you, in a related issue, what did Ron Paul say? He said, foreign aid, I forget how he defined it. When you give foreign aid, it's taking money from America's poor people and giving it to the rich people, and that run brutal regimes. And, I'm all for helping out other countries, 100%. But, the question always comes up. When you give foreign aid to another country, where is that money? I mean, we know now it's a lot of times it's not even getting to the people that need to get to it.
Exactly.
And I would say, too, with Singapore, I'll tell you what else, Caitlin, I think with Singapore, to me, the cameras sound like maybe part of a bigger problem in this case.
Yes.
If they're taking money and fining people and the government's keeping the money, I'd say this goes a little beyond the surveillance cameras.
But I think that's the direction it's going in, though, Dan. Honestly, I mean, this all started a couple decades ago when Australia started putting little barcodes on cars so that they could fine people annually for
Right.
speeding by having the little registration machines at far remote roads and intersections. If
Right.
you blew the stop sign and you were 200 miles away from civilization, you'd get a fine for speeding and
Right,
blowing.
right.
So to me, it's all the evolution of these types of processes. So London may have put these cameras in, and they
Right.
might have told everybody we're doing it for this reason, but ultimately,
Right.
once that infrastructure is there, they can go anywhere with it.
Oh, definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
And so Singapore may seem like an extreme to us, but Michael has
Right.
raised many good points on this show about why things are changing. Why are we losing our rights? Why is Homeland
Right.
Security taking certain actions? Why are we allowing this to become the law of the land? So,
Because we're weak, spineless human. No, I'm sorry.
Hey, well, you know what, Michael? Michael, let me give you another example if you don't mind,
Sure.
okay? Logan Airport in Boston, okay?
Logan Airport.
They had those
Huge.
they had the naked body scanner machines put in, okay? Now I'm very aware of all this, okay? I'm the slob on the plane that wears the pajamas because I don't want any metal on me or anything because I don't want anyone touching me.
I don't
I
blame
go through
you.
an airport. What's that, Mike?
I don't blame you. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry.
Nobody touches me. I'm the one person I know that goes through, nothing goes off. No one touches me. I don't want anyone near me, okay? And I prepare for it. Now, let me tell you this. The last time I went through Logan, they had the naked body scanner, the big Rappy scan, whatever they're called, right? And which I think is horrifying that, again, maybe it is making people safe, but why are people okay with their wife or their little daughter going naked through these things, okay? Now, I went through it, and I noticed over in the corner was a metal detector. There was another line. I went through the metal detector. Anybody could go through it. You did not even have to go through the naked body machine, okay?
Wow,
Now,
that's
they
a
had
wonderful option.
Now, but here's the thing, though, Caitlin. They had 2 or 3 of those naked Rappy scan, naked body scan or whatever, which I don't even think are safe, okay?
No, I don't believe they are either.
Right. I read one article. They scramble your DNA and all this other thing. Well, here's the point, Caitlin, and this is why I am so hesitant to get mad at our government. I watched hundreds and hundreds of people walk through this naked body scanner machine, and over in the corner where you could go through the metal detector, and again, I guess it was for people that had issues or couldn't go through or didn't want to go through. I just chose to go over. I had no medical issue. I just didn't want to go in the naked body machine. I wanted to go through the metal detector. All the planes I've been on in the last year, I haven't gone through one naked body scanner at all, okay?
Good for you.
My point is this.
You'll have to here.
Right. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure there are some places where they're mandatory. I know that.
Opt out.
You can't.
You can't.
Right. Well,
We
they'll
found
get me
out
at some
Milwaukee
point.
has taken that option away. They're not
Well,
supposed to,
but-
but
but-
they've taken
but-
it away.
Right, but here's my point, Caitlin. At Logan, now maybe it was even just this particular day. What does that say about us when I'm looking at literally 150 to 200 people piling over each other to go through this naked body machine, and there's 5 people going through the metal detector, and I'm one of them? Again, why are people... on that particular day, you did not have to be seen naked in that thing. Your genitals or whatever, you didn't have to show them, and people were still going through it. And I sit there saying, this is not the TSA guys. That's people saying, fine. Maybe this is quicker.
Well, that's the herd mentality, though, Dan, really.
Absolutely. Well, however you want to define it, fine. I'll agree with you on that. It's the herd mentality. Where is this herd mentality coming from? I don't get it. I just don't understand
I think
why
it's
people
hopelessness, a lot of it, Dan.
People are willingly burning themselves at the stake, as far as I'm concerned. I've seen it. You know what, Caitlin? I had a friend that was involved in a lot of politics. He got his picture taken with, the vice president and this, that. It's really not that hard to get involved in politics. It really isn't. And, I think that's the other thing. People are bred to believe that these politicians are, they're born famous or whatever. They don't understand that. I mean, you can, granted, if someone like me or you ran for office, we'd probably get shut out by the, the media, but still, it can be done. I mean, again, Ron Paul, regardless of what you think of him, there have been guys like Ralph Nader, Ron Paul, even Ross Perot that did let their voice be heard. I mean, they did pretty damn good for a third party or for an alternative
Yeah, I think they did.
candidate.
And-
So I mean, I just think saying like, we're being suppressed. Well, Alex Jones was on The View. At what point can we say this is the people doing this to themselves?
Alex was on The View because he was speaking for Charlie Sheen, and they were,
Absolutely.
And I don't know if he would have made it on there if it weren't for that fact.
You were right, Michael, but still, I mean, the fact that they let him on and let him shout his website out still was amazing to me. The fact that Jesse Ventura and Ron Paul have been on there.
But they don't
Forget
feel any
Alex
threat.
Jones. What's that?
They don't feel any threat because exactly from what you were saying earlier, they can put that information out there and not have to worry about it at all because they feel like they're appeasing the crowd.
That's my point.
Exactly.
That's my point. You can now put Jesse Ventura on The View, have him tell you that the Gulf of Tonkin was a fake, that the Vietnam War started over a fake incident, and like I said, even if it did happen, at best it was exaggerated. Regardless, he's saying this on daytime network television in front of millions and millions of people that are part of a mainstream audience, and yet people are still okay with all of this.
So what are you saying? You're saying that because he's feeding it to them through the mainstream, that he's kind of rewriting the history and people are accepting this and will repeat this information and accept it as being what they should know?
What I'm saying is this. He's giving information that I think in any other country would cause people to start scratching their head. But in America, he says it, and 5 minutes later, whatever the next guest is, whether it's the Jersey Shore people or Miley Cyrus, for whatever reason, in that 5 minutes, people forget, and they're already on to the next thing.
Right.
It's like I say up here in New England. You know, if there was a little kid missing and we're trying to round up a search party, I would have to fight tooth and nail to get 20 people to help me. But yet, that Patriots game comes on. Who are the Patriots playing? And they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of viewers.
Sure.
People have just got their priorities backwards. And I know I'm jumping around and giving different reasons and examples, but I definitely think, like I said, there is a theme. There's a definite theme to all this where
sure.
Our priorities are backwards. They're just backwards. What's important?
I think there might be a little bit more to it, but I think Michael's queuing up some music right now to take a short break again. So
take a short break here.
I'll challenge you after we're back from the break, but you hang on there, okay? We'll be right back
I'll talk
to you.
in a minute.